Hello, dear traders. We start the new week with an analysis of the Forex market and cryptos based on economic news and events and technical analysis. Last week, if you traded according to the analysis presented in the weekly analysis that we published last Sunday, you definitely had a profitable week, and after a good weekend, you can now plan for the next week. Although the analysis we present here is usually correct, I reiterate that do not forget capital management and risk management, because the market is always accompanied by unforeseen events. What guarantees your success and profitability in the long term is capital management and risk management. In other words, we present here an analysis that is based on economic news and events alongside technical analysis, and it is natural that it will come true and bring you profit, but nevertheless, you should always consider capital management and risk management. As always, we start our next week's Forex analysis with a look at last week's economic news and events. Looking at the economic calendar last week, we can see that the currency pairs of the British pound against the US dollar and the Swiss franc had the most positive economic news and received the highest score with a positive of 7 points. In other words, this indicates that the British pound has strengthened. On the other hand, we can see that the Canadian dollar has the most negative points against the Japanese yen with -6 points, which is a sign of the weakening of the Canadian dollar. Looking at the important economic news last week, we can see that the Canadian dollar had the news of the monthly GDP, which reached a value of -0.1 from the previous value of 0.1, and this weakened the Canadian dollar. In the following, we will examine the news related to the US dollar and the DXY index. The US dollar had 3 important news last week. In 2 cases, the value of the US dollar decreased, and in 1 case, the value of this currency strengthened. But as we mentioned before, the most important economic news of the US last week was the ISM Manufacturing PMI, which happened on Wednesday, and it reached 47.7 from the previous 47.4, despite the fact that it was predicted to reach 47.9, and this caused the US dollar to decline. But in general, it can be said that last week's economic news did not have much impact on the dollar, and we saw only a small decrease in the value of the US dollar. Looking at the DXY index, we see that we are still dealing with the ceiling of the range that we mentioned nearly 1 month ago, and based on technical analysis, we expect a correction in the value of the US dollar, so that in case of positive economic news for the US dollar, the upward trend in the value of the US dollar will continue. As you can see, the RSI indicator is also in the range of 70, and it is a sign that we should wait for a correction and fall in the value of the US dollar, so that the upward trend continues when it reaches the range of around 104. To see if it reaches its goals of 108, 110, and 113 or not. Note that this red arrow and these big green arrows were drawn last week, and you can see that the price moved last week as well as we predicted. Let's go to the economic calendar in the coming week. You can see that we have a lot of important economic news in the coming week, most of which will happen on Wednesday and Friday. We predict that we will have a turbulent week with high volatility, and we should consider the economic news in a special way in our analysis. As you can see, the euro against the US dollar and the Australian dollar against the US dollar have the most positive news predicted for the coming week with a positive 10 points, followed by the British pound, which was voted against the US dollar last week, with 9 positive score, has the highest score compared to other currency pairs. At the bottom of the table, the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen, and the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc and the US dollar against the Japanese yen have negative points of -9, -6, and -6 respectively, which indicates that in the coming week as well we expect the Canadian dollar to decline further. We see the economic news of the past month on different currencies. As you can see, the US dollar still had the most positive news with a plus 6 points, followed by the British pound, the euro, and the Swiss franc with a plus 5 points, and finally the Japanese yen with a plus 4 points. On the other hand, the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, and New Zealand dollar have been negative. According to the analysis done on the economic calendar, we go through some currency pairs that we think should be considered in the coming week. Thank you for your attention. I hope you have a profitable week ahead. You can visit the Porsche Forex Academy website to be informed about the latest economic news and events, and also get good buy and sell signals on different currency pairs. Don't forget to subscribe us and follow the economic news on Porsche Forex Academy website.